Historic legislation, earth-shattering legislation taking place in Mexico City. They're going to privatize their energy industry. How much? And how many business opportunities might come as a result? Let's go to San Antonio, shall we? Dr. Thomas Tunstell, a new friend. He's an energy industry researcher at UTSA, University of Texas, San Antonio. Dr. T, welcome to the show. Okay, so what precisely is Mexico City doing? How are they changing their law, their constitution? What's going on?
I haven't had a chance to review the secondary legislation, but basically they had earlier amended their constitution to allow other companies to operate inside the energy industry in Mexico. And then since then, have been working on the secondary laws, what we call the rulemaking process here in the U.S., to kind of define some of the fine print about profit sharing and rules of engagement, particularly with Pemex. And so they appear to have that second phase put to bed. And so now the implementation begins.
Is there overwhelming support in the Mexican legislative body to get this thing passed and get it passed quickly?
Yeah, in the legislature. I mean, there are still some pockets that sort of see Pemex and the oil industry as the legacy or the heritage of the country. But, you know, the reality is that Mexico's oil production has been declining.
And very inefficient.
Yeah, and beyond that, I mean, they already import 650 billion cubic feet of natural gas from the U.S. every year, and yet they're sitting on trillions of cubic feet of it in their own country.
10-4. I recall in one of the original write-ups that I caught on this, it mentioned that it would allow individual states in Mexico to negotiate with companies and contractors for fracking, for exploration, to work with them. Is that correct?
I've heard that, and that could certainly be true, particularly since Pemex is likely to be focusing more on the capital-intensive deep water projects or conventional natural gas. So the shale may very well be tapped by private companies working in conjunction with the states.
It is fascinating to see, Dr. T, and I know you've seen this map before. Just north of us, you know, the fracking wells that are taking place between you and us here in Deep South Texas, and then going back to the river. All the dots on the map, just a huge swath of dots from the Rio Grande River all the way into Texas, south of San Antonio, over to the Victoria area, and north of the valley. And then, but when you go back to the river, once you hit the river, there's nothing in Mexico. So do you expect a bunch of dots to start popping up on that side of the river soon?
Yeah, it's funny. I've heard that slide that we use in our presentations has made it all the way down to Mexico City, and I imagine there's some embarrassment on the side of the border. We don't think there's going to be a significant amount of private company activity until probably the middle of next year. But yeah, we do expect eventually to see some production occurring there.
Mexico is plowing forward with energy reforms. They're going to be unleashing to the private sector some of their nationalized assets. Joining us on 710 KURV, Dr. Thomas Tunstell from the University of Texas, San Antonio.
Dr. Tunstell, Tim Sullivan here, and the fields in northern Mexico that are ripe for fracking. Are they an extension of the Eagle Ford Shale, or are they separate? Does the Eagle Ford Shale actually continue across the river into northern Mexico, or are those separate shales?
Yeah, my understanding is that it is a continuation for a while. It gets renamed once it's on the other side of the border.
Yeah.
Usually referred to as the Burgos Basin. And then there's actually, it looks like several shales along, by Monterrey over down the coast that have potential.
Does that mean the oil firms, the energy firms that are fracking in the Eagle Ford, I guess, have first shot at the Burgos Basin then?
Well, logically, they certainly have the geographical proximity, and then you would expect that they would be among the first to tap into it. And it's worthwhile to note that beyond just the proximity, there's only one country, and particularly, there's activity going on in North Dakota, but the bulk of the hydraulic fracturing activity, particularly for oil, is taking place in Texas, in South Texas and West Texas. And those companies are certainly the best positioned to capitalize on opportunities in Mexico.
There are already a lot of environmental and health concerns about the fracking process. What are the standards in Mexico? Are they less or about the same as in the U.S.? And I guess I'm wondering if U.S. energy companies, are going to be flocking to northern Mexico because of less stringent regulations there.
Well, that's hard to say, and there are some dynamics that are different as well in terms of ownership of mineral rights. Because in Texas, for example, individuals usually own the mineral rights. But as far as environmental, here the Texas Railroad Commission regulates that, and the regulators in Mexico have actually been visiting with our Railroad Commission to understand how the state of Texas manages and regulates the oil and gas industry, to try and take some tips from them.
On the horizon, Dr. Tunstell, what do you see are the business opportunities that are coming in? For example, the economic development offices here, the very successful ones like McAllen, Mission, Edinburgh, even Brownsville. We got the Port of Brownsville. We've got economic development always luring companies to the area. What industries, what companies should they be focusing on to take advantage of this potentially, this huge boon in exploration and energy that's taking place?
Yeah, well, it's going to be similar to the types of opportunities here in Texas. There's going to be a lot of interest by exploration and production companies, but also by a lot of supplier firms.
Pipes,
trucking,
generators, all that type of stuff.
Welding, truckers, yeah, you bet.
And do you see the Rio Grande Valley, literally booming? The Rio Grande Valley itself literally booming as a result of the new processes in northern Mexico?
Well, we certainly expect the economy there to be impacted because it's already a somewhat diversified economy. That's a good thing. This will be an augment to the activity that's already taking place. One of the concerns we have in places where all there is oil and gas activity is that if something happens, they could be
that's it.
Left holding the bag. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So ideally, even Houston learned that lesson in the 80s. Their economy used to be 80% dependent on oil and gas. Now it's less than half of that. So that if there is a downturn of some sort, they're insulated from that. And that's, I think, the approach the economic development folks in the valley should be taking.
10-4. Dr. Tunstell, we'll keep in touch. That's Dr. Thomas Tunstell, energy industry researcher at the University of Texas San Antonio, our guest on 710 KURV. News A Service.